Hello and welcome to this video on daily monitoring checks for Enterprise Vault. My name is Phil Walters and I'm a consultant working for a company called Adeptech. So the first thing that we should consider with our daily checks is looking at the status in the admin console. You can find that right under Directory, as you can see in the screenshot. In this particular example, we've got 12 critical alerts. Ideally, there should be no critical alerts. All you should see is a nice green tick indicating there are no issues. If you do have any issues, there is a how to fix link which is highlighted there. That will take you directly to the documentation and help you to fix this particular problem. It isn't good practice to have any alerts, so there are various different things that we can do to get rid of them, and I'll cover that more in the demonstration. So how are these status checks actually configured? We can find that in the Site Properties on the Monitoring tab. It's important to check the thresholds are correct for your environment. The thresholds that are showing there are the factory defaults, as it were, and they are really for a medium to large Enterprise Vault environment and may not be applicable in your situation, so you should change them. Also make sure that the monitoring start time is sensible. So the default start time is 9 o'clock in the morning. But there's no point in having that start time if, for instance, your backup hasn't completed at 9 AM. Also, if you do your daily checks at 7:30 in the morning, there's no point in having the monitoring check running at 9 o'clock because then you're looking at how it was the previous day. You can also deselect any monitors that are not relevant in your environment so you don't get spurious alerts. So it's important to check these thresholds and make them relevant to your environment. The next thing we should do is confirm backup and post-processing. So confirm that the backup is completed successfully, and obviously that will depend on the backup product that you're using. Also check that the Vault stores and index locations are not in backup mode, and I'll show you how to do that when we get to the demonstration. Also confirm that Enterprise Vault has no items awaiting backup. So we can do that using the usage web page, which you can see in the screenshot there. Once again, I'll show you that in the demonstration. Enterprise Vault Operations Manager is a great way of confirming that all the EV services and tasks are running without having to go and look at each individual server. You can also check things like operating system parameters, including free disk space. Operations Manager is also good for checking the journal mailbox. So if you are journaling, it's important to check regularly, really every day, whether there are failed items in the journal mailbox, and also whether there are lots of items building up, indicating there are issues with journal archiving. Once again, I'll show you more details about this in the demonstration. Another thing we should do every day is to check the summary of the last archiving run. So we can now see this on the properties of the archiving task, and it will show you things like the archiving window, so when it started and ended. It'll also show you the total throughput. So in this example, the 36,210 items archived in the archiving window. It also tells you things like the mailboxes that have been partially processed. So that's an important factor because that indicates there was one mailbox in this example which still had eligible items that couldn't be archived in the archiving window. In this example, there were 1,150 mailboxes with warnings, and these need to be investigated by looking in the archiving report. I'll show you that in the demonstration. It's a good idea to also regularly monitor the A5 message queues. For scheduled archiving, the A5 queue contains a process mailbox message for each mailbox to be processed. If the task doesn't complete all its work in the nightly schedule, then the messages are left on the queue and the task will pick up where it left off the previous night. If the A5 queue is empty at the end of the run, this is a good indication that the task is able to process all its work successfully. And it's important to regularly check whether there are messages building up on the A5 queue, and I'll show you this in the demonstration. You can also use the admin console to check for failed indexes. So if you click on the indexing node, on the right hand side you get this very useful indexing summary, and you can see at a glance whether you had any indexes that are failed. If there are any failed indexes, you should use the Manage Indexes tool to synchronize, restore them from backup, or rebuild them. If you already have System Center Operations Manager installed in your environment, then I strongly recommend that you implement the Enterprise Vault SCOM pack to get proactive monitoring of Enterprise Vault. So I'm now going to do a demonstration of some things we've just covered. So as you can see, we're starting the demonstration with the admin console already open. And the first thing I want to show you is the status. So you can see it here, just under directory. If I click status, you can see I have 14 critical alerts. Now if I just choose one of these, the unscheduled tasks alert, you can see it's talking about the fact that the default schedule was set to never. And if I click this link, it'll tell me how to fix that. So it'll take me to the documentation specifically to that particular status alert. So what we need to do is to really go through each one of these and to fix it. Many of these are to do with backing up Enterprise Vault, which isn't happening regularly in my lab system for the moment. So let's do the unscheduled tasks one. So if I now go to the site properties and go to the site schedule and select selected times, and I'm just going to set a very short schedule for the moment. Like that. Obviously I'd need to restart the relevant tasks for that to apply. Once I've made the changes, I can rerun all the checks by right-clicking status and choosing rerun all checks. It's going to go through each one of the monitoring alerts again and see whether it's still triggering. And hopefully we'll find that obviously unscheduled tasks will no longer be listed. And obviously I could then do that going through each one of them methodically and trying to get rid of the alert so I don't have any alerts at all. So you'll notice that I've now got only 13 alerts and the unscheduled tasks alert is no longer listed. So the next thing I want to show you is how to check whether or not your system is still in backup mode. So there are two places to look. First, for index locations, we can go to the properties of the indexing service. And on the index locations tab, and you can see there that none of my locations are currently in backup mode. For the Vault stores, I can go to Vault Store groups, and if I click on the Vault Store group in the left hand side, you'll see a list of all the Vault stores in the right hand side, and this is column here, and if it's in backup mode this will be set showing as yes. So that's the easiest way of checking both the index locations and Vault stores whether they're in backup mode. Another thing I said I'd show you was the usage web page. So basically it's the name of your Enterprise Vault server /Enterprise Vault /usage.asp. And on this page you will see a list of all your Vault stores, and you'll get a useful summary, the number of active archives in each Vault store and the total number of items archived. Can then drill down and get more details for each archive if I want to, like that. One of the most useful things about this page is it shows the number of items awaiting backup. So you can see you've got 51 items awaiting backup on the Corporate Compliance Vault store and 12 items on the Information Management Vault store. If I've got very large numbers of items awaiting backup, indicates I've got some problem with either backup or post-processing, so I need to investigate that. The number may not be actually 0 because users may be able to archive items during the day, so there may be a number of items awaiting backup, but if it's like millions of items then you do have an issue. The next thing I said I'd show you was the Enterprise Vault Operations Manager, and I can get to that easily from the admin console by clicking on the site and then opening up this Enterprise Vault Server Management section and clicking Show Operations Manager. But I've already done that in preparation, and it is actually open here in the window. You can also get there by the name of the EV server / monitoring web app. So on this particular page, first of all, I've got Enterprise Vault server monitoring. I've got an overview here showing me that the services and tasks are all running. And if I click the link, it shows me more details. So you can see that all my services and tasks are running okay. It also gives me move archive status as well. And further down, I can see performance counters as well, both for my Vault stores and for my disks, memory and processor. So you can see here that I've got a warning status, because my processor time is over the warning threshold, because it's quite a small virtual environment that I'm using for my lab system here. Also, I can go to Exchange Server Monitoring tab. So this will show me whether any of the thresholds for the journal mailbox have been breached. So we've got things like the number of items in the inbox, number of items archived pending, but also we've got the failed operation as well: failed to copy, failed to store, failed DL expansion, and so on. If I want to get more details, I can click the Details tab and it'll show me the actual numbers. Okay, so you can see they're all currently set to 0. If I go to configuration, I can actually change the thresholds, and it's a good idea to change these. Once again, as with the monitoring alerts we looked at earlier, they're set for a medium to large Enterprise Vault environment. So are these. So you may want to change some things like the exchange parameters. So the number of archivable items, you may want to reduce that or increase it, depending on the size of your environment. So now I'm going to go back to the admin console and go to the properties of the archiving task, which is here, and then go on to the reporting tab. As we talked about during the presentation, this is a summary of the last completed archiving run. So you can see the last run was a run now, and it archived 3 items and it was targeting 1 mailbox. If you want to get more details, if I click the View Reports button, it'll open up a web page. So by default, you can see the last 5 archiving runs, and you can then look at either the HTML version of the report, or you can download the CSV version. So let's look at the HTML. So this is a summary telling me the user that was archived, it was completed successfully, what policies applying, what archiving strategies, an age-based archiving strategy, number of items archived, the time of the youngest item archived, and any pending or future eligible items or ineligible items. So these can be very useful when you're troubleshooting why archiving doesn't seem to be doing what you expect it to do. If you get into more detail, you can see things like in the section over here called Main Reasons Items Not Archived, you can see whether items that are too young, and if you hover over you get some useful help, unread items, message class exclusion, and so on. So from this you can determine why items aren't currently eligible for archiving, and obviously you may need to change the mailbox policy so that more items are eligible for archiving. This is particularly important if you're using quota-based archiving. So the final thing I want to show you is the message queues, and we need to open up Server Manager to see those. They can be visible under features and then message queuing, and then there are private queues that are used by Enterprise Vault. Just expand this. Now you can see there are lots and lots of different queues, but the one we're most focused on is this A5 queue. So this is the one that's used by scheduled archiving. And if you just open that up, you can see here the queue messages folder. And this is what you're going to be checking certainly every week and probably every day to see whether any message is left over. If at the end of the week you've got more and more messages building up in here, what I recommend is you just right click on here and choose All Tasks Purge. So what that means, it will remove all the process mailbox messages that are currently on this queue, and it'll just go back to the beginning. So there's no issue removing messages when you're outside the archiving run. It's not going to damage anything. But if they keep on building up, eventually you'll find archiving basically grinds to a halt for many of your users. So that brings us to the end of this demonstration and the end of this video of the daily monitoring task for Enterprise Vault. Thank you very much.